3 months is all you really need to make a dramatic leap forward in your life. 3 months, it can be an incredible transformation, an incredible change. And if you don't believe me, I want you to think about some of these weeks you might have had where you just locked in, you did everything perfectly. I want to say for even 3 or 4 days. Have you had anything like that? Like for me, if I ever have had a spell of time where I've been off my diet, maybe I've been filming too much and then as a result drinking, a couple of late nights because a buddy of mine was in town, anything like that. Okay, on those days, I feel off. I feel as if that lack of excellence isn't there. But then if I take 3 or 4 days after that, or even a week after that, to just eat perfectly, track my calories, all these basic things that I do, sleep enough, even subtle things like sleeping on time to going to bed early, I would say in 3 or 4 days, my entire universe begins to change. In 3 or 4 days, I feel like a different man. Even like the quality of my skin changes. Who I am underneath begins to improve. So if you can have that much of an impact in just 3 days, or 1 meal over, I can feel better than I might have otherwise. If you had 12 weeks of consistency with it, how far could you go? It is very reasonable to set time horizons that are 6, 8, 9 months, maybe a year out, 3, 5 years in advance. And it is very true that 5-year timelines, 5-year horizons, those are the metrics in which you can truly, do legacy building enterprises. But a 5-year timeline is something that has never worked well. For me, it never creates that sense of urgency. Instead, you might be better off creating these small chunks of time, a 12-week block in which you just really choose to go for it. One marker of excellence that I see in regards to that is meditating immediately after waking up. Now, the reason I bring up this idea in terms of changing your life in 12 weeks is because across the board with so many things that I do and so many things that I recommend for people to pursue, across the board, meditation is like a through line with being more successful. It helps you make better decisions. It helps you stay more focused. It helps you stay more present and relaxed. It helps you tap into your intuition and do a better job of enacting the law of attraction. When it comes to content creation even, so many of the coaching clients that I end up working with, I recommend to them that they meditate. This relentless thing to just meditate. I even have a daily calendar at my home base and it tracks all of the metrics that are the most important to me, but one of them is meditation. That's actually the one that is the least often filled out. It's like I didn't get to the meditation that day. Why? Because if I start off my day with anything else, it's very easy to let that habit slip. But if I stay on track and I meditate that day, and the best way to do it is to do it immediately after waking up, it creates this weird energy, this weird vibe across your day where you just feel like very composed, very willing to take action. So if you're looking to focus on yourself, change your life in 12 weeks time, one of the coolest, smartest, and most rigorous things you could do is just kick off the day with the meditation. You get up and you meditate. It's like you get up, you shower, you meditate. Meditate first thing in the morning. It creates this atmosphere of just success. Many of these parameters, many of these things that are attuned to success in regards to you, they may look different. These principles, they're not universal. But I think one of them might be meditation. It creates you attuned to the universe. It's one of the fastest way to raise your vibration. Stay relaxed, stay productive, stay on the side of the divine. So it's something that you should look forward to. It's something that you should get done. The second thing I would recommend is read a book a week and annotate it. And then use those insights to generate new ideas. What do I mean by this? Reading is productive only in the sense of your discovery, your self-earned discovery. So it's not so much the idea in a book and the idea of you implementing it, but rather what that book reveals to you about yourself. If I'm reading a piece of content, like a book I read recently was Guns, Germs, and Steel. It's a book on like how agricultural times came into being and how basically civilization was impacted by the foods we grew and the wars we've had and all this stuff. That book, it just wasn't relevant. Sometimes I try to go very dramatically, veering into new directions with the things I read to basically pick up new stimulus, because everyone reads The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. So to have something that is outside of the cultural zeitgeist, that is the self-improvement niche, sometimes I think it can be very productive, or even to read a piece of fiction rather than anything else. So I picked up one day Guns, Germs, and Steel, and it triggered no new thoughts in me. There was none of that writing I could relate to at all. But other books I've read, they've triggered new knowledge within me. A book that actually had a dramatic impact on the last 6 months of my life was called the plant-based athlete. And the reason for that is because it revealed to me some intuitive hunches that I began to have, which is that micronutrients are overpowered when it comes to getting results in life across the board, both in terms of performance, but also in terms of well-being and vibration and overall good aura. So that book triggered so many thoughts in me. It told me especially that things like kale and lentils and blueberries, they have a certain like micronutrient dense content that's very rich, that makes you lustrous, that makes you glow. And in an industry where your face is attached to your productivity, I found that book very useful. So if you're gonna have the most locked in 12 weeks of your life, if you're in a period where you're learning to even focus on yourself, what does that look like? One thing that I would recommend that I think would actually have an impact is to actually read a book a week. And it's here where I actually want to take a quick pivot and a pause to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. It's been said that art is the derivation of skill. That's a very inspiring quote that I once heard Tom Cruise say, and he's someone that I admire in the sense that he's managed to give his career longevity for decades. Anyone can have heat for a moment, but how do you keep it year after year after year? Well, the answer is that you keep learning. That's why I'm happy to say that the sponsor for today's video is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform that I've been using for 7 years now, ever since I started my YouTube journey. In fact, my very first course on Skillshare was Ali Abdaal's Intro to Final Cut Pro, which is actually how I became a competent editor in the first place. It was where I learned color grading and improving sound and getting the best out of my footage in terms of non-linear timeline editing. Prior to that, it had just been iMovie. Without the ability to learn those courses on Skillshare, and since that time take so many other classes, I don't think I would have gained the grounds I would have. Now in the season coming up, as the weather gets extremely cold, it's gonna be a lot harder to keep filming and to keep going out into the field. So I've actually resolved to get really, really good at After Effects. I'm willing to pour 20, 40, 100 hours into it. And I'm actually kicking off with an After Effects course on Skillshare by Megan F. It's about putting animations. I've seen Thomas become so competent as an editor over the years, and I want just a smidge of what he has. The first 500 people to use my link in the description box or the QR code on screen will get a 30-day free trial of Skillshare. It's the #1 place I would start when you're trying to gain some sort of skill when it comes to creativity, photography, editing, anything like that. Skillshare is the place to go. There's also just a number of really interesting courses, many of which are by friends of mine, like Nathaniel Drew and Ali Abdaal and Thomas Frank. The platform is loaded with a lot of interesting content and things you can learn to especially become a better creator. So if you want to check them out, you can use my link in the description box or the QR code on screen. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Now on with the rest of it. And importantly, I found that as I read books, the best way to actually absorb the information in the content you read is to read it on Kindle, highlight the pages, highlight the parts of the book that you find interesting, and then afterwards rewrite them in a separate page. I like to put these annotations on Notion. You want to rewrite your book and the ideas from it on a separate page in Notion. And then most importantly, if it triggers a thought in yourself, if it triggers a new idea, a new implementation, something you want to do, then journal about that. Deviate from what the book is saying and start journaling about your own self-knowledge and see where it takes you. Because knowledge can come from many different places. One of the places that knowledge can come from is from experience, the things you do, the things you pursue. But knowledge can also come from the books we read. But the value of most books doesn't come from the idea that the author is presenting itself. It actually comes from what it reveals about you, how it triggers you, how the insights that you get in regards to that, what that does for you specifically. So in order to have the most locked 12 weeks of your life, you're going to want to take in new ideas, definitely. But in regards to that as well, you want to leave space in reading. You want to leave time to journal about yourself and see what ideas that actually trigger. This is also going to increase your verbal reasoning. So if you ever want to like create content, make videos, write blog articles, whatever it might be, you'll find that you'll become a more effective writer and you'll become just a more well-spoken, well-versed person in general if you read, annotate books, and then journal off them after the fact on that. In contrast, using things like ChatGPT or any AI source to do any kind of scripting or dialogue or even email writing, it actually just dulls the mind. It makes you stupider. It's something that that you want to stay away from. Knowledge that's taken from research, insight, and then compelled to reveal your own writing to yourself is going to make you more effective. It's going to turn you into someone who's capable of producing original thoughts. In this season, where you're actually trying to get new results and implement new strategies, you want to have this combination of energetic and strategy. You want the energetics, and that's where the daily morning meditation comes in, but you also want strategy. Idea number 3 then, trust the timing of things. This more so goes for self-generated schedules and things that you're working on your own, but you'll probably acknowledge that throughout your day, you can intuitively feel when it is time to do the next thing you need to do. You can feel like, oh, it's time to do this now. I can just feel. And usually with many of those endeavors, there is a sense of hesitation about them, especially if it's tough, hard work, but it's important and you know it's the stuff you need to do. That you bump into that hesitation as well. But at the same time, with many tasks, you can feel that I can feel for some reason it's time to do this. For instance, just yesterday, I attempted my 5th Ironman 73 and actually set a major PR. I got like 55 minutes faster at the race event. This morning, I felt a trigger once again to go out and do a swim, which is, for most people, a crazy thing to say. It's a crazy thing to do. Now, I only did 700 meters, which is like half my usual distance, and it was also the day after the race. But I have enough of a self-trust, a self-understanding at this point that if the goal is to become an Ironman all-world athlete, and if the goal is to like move towards these more dramatic results, then I need to teach and train and remind my body that we're actually continuing the prep. We're actually going to continue the swim. And that's something I need to do. It's something I need to pursue. And so I got in there and I just did a little bit. I could hear that intuition in myself. I could hear that understanding. So you can feel this, especially if you have these practices. If you practice any kind of spirituality, you can begin to feel in yourself, it's time to do this. It's time to do that. This is the next action I need to take. After recording this video, it's time for me to go on a hike and enjoy California for a bit before I head back home to Minnesota. So the more attuned you can be to the schedule that is set underneath, the better you're gonna do. Like the better this whole thing is gonna turn out. And in the same regard, if you can listen to the schedule and you find yourself not doing it, then you end up stopping or slowing down that next period of your life. And then idea number 4 then, set your schedule based off the archetype you've set for that season. Create your schedule based off the archetype you have set for that season. Now, season over season, you may feel that your internal archetype has changed, but create an archetype for yourself. For that season. This is the kind of season I'm in. This is how I'm going to conduct myself. And it could show up in so many regards. You could say this is the season of the musician. This is a season of my life where I'm really focusing on just getting more technically skilled at playing the guitar or whatever it might be. Well, it's good to embody that space. This sounds a little bit silly or trivial to say, but in the Ironman world, there's a lot of guys with long hair, goatees, and earrings, especially at the race event yesterday. The trope of the guy with a little dangly earring, which I have on me right now, you can see subtly. The trope of the guy with the earring is actually very common. This is kind of embarrassing for me to admit, but by the time I got this little earring, which I didn't get for myself, I got it for a film project. By the time I got this earring, I felt more Ironman-y. I felt more like a triathlete, because it kind of matches the aura or the vibe of these people who swim a lot in wetsuits or do open water swims. And so it suddenly had an impact on who I am. Even in the space of like YouTube or videography, filmmaking, a lot of these creators, they wear rings and they have tattoos and stuff. I wouldn't say that's necessarily true to me, but it's something I notice in the space. And so it can be interesting. There are ways in which you can physically embody the space and the performance of what you're pursuing, and it makes a difference. One of the most dramatic things I did, this isn't it, but at some point I'd gotten a swim bag, a bag dedicated exclusively to swimming, and it made me feel more like a triathlete. So the schedule, it is set by the archetype. You know, you get to choose for yourself, season over season, what your archetype is. One of my coaching clients, the assignment I set to him was to make an Instagram reel every single day. And we created a schedule together for him. He lives in Bali. We created a schedule that would be attuned to the result he's seeking, what he's working on, what he's trying to pursue. Even in my own regard, I made a commitment to upload to YouTube every week across both my channels. So it creates a new energy, it creates a new vibe. Suddenly, you have to put the camera on like a little book and just prop it up there. And just, you know, make it work somehow, because that's what you set for yourself. It is part of my archetype. to just put something together on the fly, even during a trip, even during commute, whereas in a previous season of my life, perhaps I wouldn't have. But when you actually set these archetypes for yourself, the schedule from that will naturally show itself. It'll naturally emerge. So what I want you to do is actually create seasonality in your life. This is a good time to do it because the year is coming to an end. So you can look to January and in advance, and you can give yourself a rolling start. I mean, I would start December 15th even. I would start sooner and just say, like, this is what the next year represents. January through March, this is what my focus is. This is what I'm working on. The days and the weeks, they're going to more or less look the same, but I'm going to kick this week off with meditation, and I'm going to basically submit myself to the archetype I've set for myself. I'll read a book a week. I'll generate new ideas. I'll annotate them, but I'll listen to the internal clock within, and I'll use that to let me grow. If you want to look into these ideas a little bit further, I have a school community in which I work with people to just bring seasonality into their life. Set that 3-month-long timeline, 3-month-long horizon by which you can grow. Pursue the next thing you were meant to pursue. And it's just crazy how much you can accomplish in 3 months' time. It's really profound, especially if you just pay attention to how much a single meal, a single perfect diet, or a single 4 days of tracking your calories accurately. In the physical space, it shows up so quickly, but then even energetically, or in your life's work, these things, they begin to show, they begin to compound, and they will bear you fruit. They will bear you new results. So just lock in for 3 months and focus on yourself for 3 months, see what happens. It doesn't take that long to bring that seasonality into your life and accomplish the goals of the next season. Greatness is coming. We'll catch you next time.
Is that really your idea of how to run a newspaper?
I don't know how to run a newspaper, Mr. Thatcher. I just try everything I can think of.